How's it going? Welcome back, my wise ones, to Toxic Commando. Welcome back to the Saber show. Today we're going to be taking a look at John Carpenter's Toxic Commando. Now, I had quite a lot of fun last time just, playing Marathon and giving you my live thoughts on the game. And I've decided I'm going to stick with that format for reviews that I'm not super invested in, I'll be honest, but I'm just kind of, morbidly curious as if they're good games or not. Jesus. Okay. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today with John Carpenter's Toxic Commando. I'm going to be giving you a review of this game, an early access look at this game, just telling you basically what you need to know, and if it's actually worth buying or not. So basically what this is, it's kind of playing around with a few different ideas from different games. So, think of something like Left 4 Dead and something more akin to State of Decay. It's got kind of some of those elements from both of these games mixed into this one with a little bit of kind of Far Cry DNA and, kind of World War Z, kind of horde-based gameplay. So if you like, wave-based shooters with zombies, you're probably going to enjoy this, but this is definitely much more objective-based. So if you take a look at the map here, what we have right now is we need to clear out these zones so then we can actually get into the main area, and there we're going to, complete a random objective. But what makes this game different compared to other zombie survival games, and the reason why I said it kind of reminds me of State of Decay, is it does actually have some survival elements within the kind of gameplay as well. So first of all, it's using, like new technology. Well, I wouldn't say it's new technology, but technology that kind of simulates, actual, rugged landscapes and driving. As you can see right there, the puddles, even though they're not exactly the most beautiful high resolution thing that you've probably ever seen, I certainly don't think this game looks amazing, but it does actually react realistically to what kind of vehicle you're driving. So if you are stuck in the mud, you will need to use like a wench to get out. You'll actually have to use some basic physics. You actually have to keep an eye on damage of your vehicle, adding stuff to make it stronger, upgrades, all that kind of stuff. And of course you will need to, think about looking for, gas and all that kind of stuff. So it does have those elements of a little bit of a survival experience. That's why I say it reminds me of State of Decay. So the themes of this game kind of reminds me of something like Stranger Things. Basically, there's a kind of experiment gone wrong, a drilling operation that's kind of messed everything up, and now it's spawned a bunch of these zombies. Now it does have a killer kind of 80s synth soundtrack, and if you like that type of music, go check out my music on Spotify. I don't just do generic synth music, I create a new electronic style of music. My new album is coming out at the end of this month. That's the only small little plug I have for this video, so go check out my music on Spotify and subscribe if you are new. And right now it looks like we have triggered a horde, so what we need to do is we need to take out this kind of main target, and that kind of black gunk is, bad news for us. So it's going to drain our health and make us slower, so we need to clear this area out, and then it should be more safe. So right now I'm rocking an AK-47. So as you can see, the environment and everything is kind of moving around. That's why you need to like watch your step for these kind of more, infected areas. So they will spawn kind of hordes of enemies, but also you're gonna get different types of zombies. And yeah, like I said, it does really remind me of something like Stranger Things or something like that. But what I do like about it is you do actually have to kind of keep an eye out for different supplies and stuff like that. Now, I'll go over all the different classes and all that kind of stuff at the end of the video. But first, let me just say, visually, this game has moments of being quite good looking. I'm running everything on high settings, but it is a little bit grainy. And yeah, the textures aren't exactly brilliant. Let's just be honest about that. The engine itself is very smooth, but you know, this is a multiplayer game and you're not going to be spending time to kind of soak in the visuals, but it's just a little bit generic, I'll say, and some of the stuff are just not that impressive, like the shadows and stuff like that. But optimization, you know, this is pretty, you know, buttery smooth for, you know, most hardware, I would assume. So it's pretty good in optimization, I guess. And of course, this is a co-op game, and you know, ideally you won't be playing with bots, but that's just how I'm going to showcase this Toxic Commando review, the early access review, because there's not many people playing this right now. Now, everyone has their own unique ability, so for me, I'm playing as a defense kind of class, so I can put down this kind of shield. So it's not exactly trying to be like a realistic zombie game. It's much more, you know, like, kind of reminds me of like a Call of Duty kind of zombies experience. I do like the fact that you actually have to, you know, physically, you know, find fuel and all that kind of stuff and actually repair your vehicle, refuel it, and it will switch to third person when you do that. So there is, you know, definitely a kind of co-op element to this where you do need to be on the lookout for supplies, and you each have your own unique class, and then there's a huge skill tree, lots of customization as well if you're into modding your weapons and stuff like that. But I just think this is a little bit generic so far, and I have been playing this for a while now. Like, I do like the fact that, you know, there's driving and, you know, resource collecting and stuff like that. Like I said, it reminds me of kind of State of Decay or Days Gone in some ways with these giant hordes and stuff. But just overall, it's kind of playing it safe. And I feel like I've played this game many times before, and it almost feels like an Xbox 360 game. And in some ways, you know, that's nice and refreshing to have a kind of stripped back experience, but for what they're asking for, I would want a bit more. Here, what we need to do... Oh, okay. Or you can just do that, just blow open the door. I think we should get out of here. And of course there's different difficulties, so you can add modifiers to make it more difficult or more easy. And the gunplay itself does feel quite snappy and responsive. These bots that I'm playing with are quite brain dead, but at least they do actually use their abilities, so that's nice. And as you can see, my vehicle is completely fucked up now, so I do have to repair that. And as you can see, we have like burning zombie types, like ones that do AoE attacks, stuff like that. So you can expect all the kind of basic stuff. And as you can see right now, I'm trying to repair the vehicle. And they've got like a mini game for it as well. God damn it. So you just have to line it up, and then you can repair the vehicle back to where it was. So, you know, some cool ideas here and there, but it just overall feels a bit gimmicky, a little bit played out, a little bit safe. Like, it almost feels like a kind of DLC that you would get in a Far Cry game or something. Jesus Christ, I keep hitting mines. Alright, we need to get up here actually, so we'll park the car here. So yeah, I'm not like, as you can tell, I'm probably not exactly the target audience for this type of game. That's why I thought I would just quickly check it out, because I much prefer, you know, like single player, RPG, you know, more deep thematic stuff where I can kind of do a philosophical analysis on it. Or, you know, sometimes I do just like a good co-op game that doesn't really have, you know, a good story, because not everything needs a good story if the gameplay's fun. But this, to me, is a little bit just, safe. You know, it's not like bad as much as, you know, we've got before, like games like Redfall, or, you know, the kind of Back 4 Blood that didn't really quite live up to the hype and magic of the original Left 4 Dead. And, you know, moment to moment gameplay is decent enough, but it's basically, you know, a classic horde shooter game with objective missions. And then you just upgrade your weapons, your skill tree, your loot, all of that kind of stuff. You know, the trailer made it look like it was going to be a lot more kind of intense and crazy, when actually the gameplay itself is quite basic. I think this is going to appeal to definitely some people. You know, if you are a fan of, like I said, Call of Duty, zombies, if you're just a fan of like simple progression, you know, you can look at different skill trees, you know, just unlocking better guns and mods for your weapons. A game that is very, you know, easy to run. It's not graphically demanding, that's for sure, and it's not exactly pushing anything, you know, new gameplay wise. And for me, I'm a sucker for, you know, good mechanics, you know, physics and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, good quality interaction with the game world, or, you know, mechanics that actually make you think about how you interact with enemies, combat, or objectives differently. This is very much like you see a place, you go to, you find loot, you find resources, you go to the next mission. And honestly, like games like State of Decay, where you actually build up a whole like little zombie society, to me that's a lot more interesting than what this is doing. But this is going to appeal to, you know, this is going to be a good game for people who like that kind of Left 4 Dead, you know, simple objective gameplay, but it doesn't really quite have the charm. And let me just talk about that. Like, I do like that they truly tried with adding some cool mechanics with the driving and stuff like that, you know, adding a grappling hook and all of this kind of stuff to your vehicle to make, you know, movement around the world more dangerous. Like, I can imagine later on with like snowy maps or something like that, that's going to be more interesting, because if you don't have a vehicle, like, this is not a giant map, but it will make, you know, navigating the world more difficult. I do like that there are physics, you know, with trees and how the zombies react and all that kind of stuff. But, like, it doesn't have the same, you know, kind of charm that Left 4 Dead has, where the characters are quite funny or engaging. The cutscenes are very bad, in my opinion. The lip syncing, the facial animations, everything just looks very dated. And I don't usually care about that kind of stuff, but, you know, when you're trying to make a polished, just fun co-op shooter, everything needs to be much more polished, in my opinion. The only thing that feels truly good is the shooting, but again, you know, just play Call of Duty if that's your kind of thing. Alright, so we gotta jump down here.
My weapon.
Alright, so we have the high ground, so let's see if we can take them out from afar.
Oh, great. Luca. Maybe we should.
I mean, there are some tactics to this a little bit, because you do have this open map. It's not like a, you know, a linear level with some other zombie horde shooters. Like, there's actual different ways you can approach objectives. Like I said, it does remind me of almost like Far Cry in some ways with its layout. And you do have melee weapons. Right now I've got she was just screaming like oh, just screams of agony. They always make my day better.
I'm seriously hurt.
Okay, so you can do a little bit of Skyrim parkour here, where you can kind of cheese your way down the map, which is kind of funny. And you can actually switch between like single fire mode or like full auto, which is kind of nice. I don't, you know, small attention to detail like that, which I like in games. And you obviously really do have to play as a team. If you go off and try and tackle different objectives as groups of like 2, or you all split up, like, that's a cool kind of dynamic. And all of your abilities do, you know, feed into each other as you expect them to. So it does make sense that you do need to stick together. But there is some nice, you know, kind of trade-off and risk and reward gameplay with that. I just haven't seen anything so far that really makes it like, okay, this is, you know, the big next co-op game that you should all play. It's very much, you know, kind of mobilified, if that makes sense. If that's a word, probably not, but I'm gonna go with it. It's almost like a mobile game in some ways. but it does have the polish of a proper shooter, which I do like. Like, you know, it's one of those games where you can just turn off your brain. It's not offensively bad, but it's not like anything amazing. And if you are a fan of John Carpenter, it does have that kind of cool aesthetic, which I like. But this doesn't feel scary. It doesn't feel, you know, like a kind of horror vibe or anything like that. They could have made it more scary and intense. I think that would have added a lot. And right now I'm playing on the standard difficulty, so, you know, they're putting up a bit of a challenge, but nothing that I can't handle with a bunch of AI. And it kind of reminds me of that Alien game where you have to complete objectives, Aliens Fireteam, I think it was. You know, something where it's fun, like you're gonna play this for maybe a couple of weeks with a group of buddies, but it's not something I would pay full price for. You know, you have to kind of set up defense points, but they all require, you know, spare parts that you have to find out in the open world, in these kind of open areas. Everything needs to, you know, kind of be upgraded, and then there's going to be a big, you know, defense wave that you have to kind of all stand together and fight. But I just think, I don't know, it needs a little bit more. It's very basic, like, okay, you go to a location, you know, have to refuel a generator. Oh, where have I heard that before? Or you have to, you know, like hack a computer and wait for the computer to be done doing, you know, some random shit. And then, of course, it's just an excuse so you can shoot more zombies. You know what I mean? So it's not all terrible, but it's just very generic. Okay, so now we have to destroy this coronavirus or something. Now it's defending itself.
Guys, I gotta reload.
But you know what I mean when I say it reminds me of Stranger Things. You can tell with the aesthetic here what it's going for. But I just think, you know, it's got that campy, nice 80s vibe. But I think it would have been cool if they played into the horror kind of aspect a bit more. Now, of course, there are different enemy types. I have seen quite a few. But, and I'm sure there's going to be more added later. This, like I said, is only the early access beginning areas and stuff. That's why I just wanted to do a quick John Carpenter Toxic Commando review based on the early access stuff. You know, that's why I do these early review series, just to take a look at what's actually coming out, to see if it's actually worth it or not, based on press access or gameplay like this. And yeah, I would say wait for a sale for this, in all honesty. It's just quite basic. You know, it's kind of the same objectives you will be doing over and over again, but some of them do have some variation to them, and big bosses and stuff like that, and it does have a good progression path, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is just that I've seen before, and it's not doing anything so special that it makes it feel like, okay, this is the next, you know, crazy big game for me. It does try and do something unique with the mud mechanics and stuff like that, with driving around, traversal, you know, tackling these objectives from an open world perspective, but for me it's not enough. So there you go, that's a quick look.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
But the characters, I've got to admit, do get on my nerves. They're not funny, their one-liners are just quite annoying, they won't shut up, they keep yabbing in your ear. So you just have to weigh the cons and pros for yourself. If you like a good co-op game, then that's good, but I would kind of class this almost as co-op slop in some regards, because playing this solo would not be a fun experience, let me just tell you that. So that's my opinion so far on Toxic Commando, my John Carpenter's Toxic Commando review. I do think it's fun, it does have some cool gameplay elements, worth it if you are the type of player who likes this type of game and you have a group of buddies. Otherwise, no, wait for a massive sale, or don't play this if you plan to play it solo. but sadly it hasn't reinvented the magic of what Left 4 Dead and those kind of games have given us before. So there you go, that's a quick look, and I do hope you like this new format for games that I'm just not sure about, so I can quickly take a look at them instead of, you know, spending all day editing and doing my usual press coverage, which takes a lot more time. So thank you so much for watching, my wise ones. Subscribe if you're new today, and leave a like down below. That really does help a lot. Let me know your thoughts on this game and gaming in general, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace out.